Hi, everyone, and welcome to AtScale's Data Driven Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. It's Bill Inmon, the father of the data warehouse. Bill, thanks so much for joining the podcast today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Great, great. Well, Bill, everybody who's been in data and analytics knows of Bill Inman and all your writings and all your research and what you've done for data warehousing over the years, me included. I've read your books and have lived and built companies around your concepts. Bill, I think that myself and the audience would just love to hear how you got involved in data and analytics. How did it all begin for Bill Inman?
Well, Dave, it's a strange story, but I'll be happy to share it with you. When I was 10 years old, I picked up a golf club and I fell in love with golf. And I wanted all my life to be a professional golfer. I was a good golfer. I was never a great golfer, but I was a good golfer. And when I got out of college, I tried for a year to make it on the PGA Tour. And I found out then that I was not good enough. And I tell people I had my own midlife crisis very early in life, which is a certain amount of truth because when I was 28 years old, I quit golf and I never looked back. I had the honor and distinction of playing with golfers you would know. I played at the same golf course with a guy named Lee Trevino, and
Wow.
and and I knew Lee Trevino before he was anywhere near famous. He was just an assistant professional at a place called Horizon Hills Country Club in El Paso, Texas, and I was a high school student. And my best friend, his father was friends with Lee. And when I was in high school, I used to play with Lee on a regular basis. And but first off, he's a really nice guy. I mean, a genuinely nice guy.
Mhm.
What? But and I was a good golfer. I was not a great golfer, but I was a good golfer. And I'll tell you one quick little Lee Trevino story. The last time I played with him was at a place called El Paso Country Club, and we were playing the 18th hole, and the 18th hole is surrounded by water, and it has a very high hump on the green.
Mhm.
And Lee was about 100 and I don't know 150 yards off the green, and he said, "Well," he says, I'm going to hit this shot. It's going to have a lot of backspin. It's going to hit the green. It's going to come down the green. It's going to break to the left, and this is 150 yards out. He almost made the shot. He almost made an eagle, and and uh, and I thought about it. In my wildest imagination, I could never ever hit a shot like that. I mean, his level of skill was beyond anything that I could even imagine. So anyway, I tried for a year. I was a professional at a little golf course in Louisiana, and I got tired of starving to death. So one day I was looking in the newspaper, and there was an ad for programmers. Now, back in those day and age, there weren't many people that were programmers, and I had taken a couple of courses in college on programming, and I had very basic skills in programming. I went and applied for the job, and that's how I got in. I just plain got tired of starving to death, and that's how I got into computers, and I got into computers as a programmer, a
Mhm.
COBOL programmer, and COBOL. You don't hear that word much anymore.
Now, I
And
know COBOL. I remember COBOL as one of my first languages I learned.
yeah, and so I was a COBOL programmer, and I started in Shreveport, Louisiana, at Western Electric, and then I took it from there.
So you sell yourself short. If you were on the PGA Tour, Bill, you were pretty good at golf. I mean, that's an elite group of people. So that's pretty amazing.
Well,
So yeah.
I can tell you, we can sit here and talk all day long about it. I was a good golfer. I was never a great golfer. Let me tell you something. Those guys you see on TV, every one of them is great. I mean, every one of them is great. And I was never a great golfer.
Well, Bill, did you have a background in software or engineering, or how did you get a job as a COBOL programmer, if your goal was to be a pro golfer?
Well, when I was going to college, I took a couple of courses in technology and computers, and I mean, I took them because they were interesting, and I just kind of wandered into way back when, and I mean, this is in the 1960s. There weren't many computer courses. There were a
Hmm.
few, but but there wasn't very much back in those days. So
Hmm.
it was an accident.
Yeah, I end up also in software as an accident. I was an economics major and just thought that writing BASIC on my Apple II Plus was a hobby, and somehow it turned into a job. So that's amazing. So you're 20 years old, got your job as a COBOL programmer, and obviously no databases at the time. So
No,
what was the first what was the sort of the first aha when it came to relational databases, and how did you get involved in being a pioneer in that space?
well, I was working at the time for a company in El Paso, Texas, El Paso Natural Gas, and they brought in IBM's IMS, and I learned IMS, and for whatever reason, I have an aptitude towards data structures. To me, understanding data structures was as simple as falling off a log, and so we all have different aptitudes, and my aptitude happens to be I am good at understanding data.
So, at the same time, a lot of us also know about Ralph Kimball, and you guys were sort of concurrent, and had different approaches, similar but different approaches to data warehousing at the time. So, I'm just curious, Bill, did were you and Ralph? Did you guys know each other? Were you because you were in the same ecosystem? Was there any kind of like relationship there, or
I
with?
I've known Ralph personally and worked with Ralph personally on many occasions. And I used to have a conference. I invited Ralph to speak at the conference on many occasions. And Ralph and I've never had one bad word between us, not one. And I read some of these articles in the paper about me and Ralph Kimball, and you know, you'd think that there was something awful there. There's nothing awful. Ralph is a decent, intelligent, nice person. Now I will say this much: Ralph understands data marts. What Ralph was writing about was data
Mhm.
marts, not a data warehouse. And from a
Mm.
structural standpoint, there is an architectural difference between
Mhm.
a data mart and a data warehouse. But I've never had one bad word with Ralph Kimball.
I love that. I love that. So, and obviously, it's we've seen and we grew up during the data warehouse boom, and a lot of companies spend a lot of money on data warehousing, and I happen to be in working for Yahoo at the time, and data lakes, and we invented Hadoop, and all of a sudden the data warehouse was sort of out of favor. Now we had data lakes, and we threw all that out, and now we're back to data warehouses and data warehousing concepts again. So it's really kind of crazy. So given the focus, and you see companies like Snowflake and Databricks and the like. So, Bill, like, what do you think went wrong during that first phase of data warehousing, and then what do you think people are doing different today, to sort of not repeat the, I guess, mistakes of the past, or the disillusionment of the past with the
That
new generation of technology?
That's actually an easy answer. At the time when data warehouse first started, the large consulting companies were just ending their year 2K experience. And the
Hmm.
large consulting companies were looking around for the next big thing to take all of those consultants and keep their billing rates up. And
Hmm.
so that's when data warehouse came along. And I can tell you firsthand, those large companies, and I'm not going to mention them by name here, but you know who they are. Those large consulting companies, they didn't understand data warehouse from Kleenex, but they would tell people, oh yeah, we're going to build a data warehouse for you. And the things they built were no more data warehouses than a cow could fly. And I blame both the consulting companies, but more than anything, I blame the people that bought into the consulting company. What
Hmm.
makes you think that a consulting company understands what's right? So there were all of these monstrosities that were built that were not data warehouses. And what's interesting is it's data warehousing got the blame. It's, oh, we tried to build a data warehouse and it failed. They didn't build a
Hmm.
data warehouse. Dave, it's like you having your next door neighbor rob a bank and then the police come and arrest you for robbing the
Hmm.
bank. Wait a minute, I didn't do it, but so that's what happened. The hunger that drives a data warehouse is believable data. As long as people want believable data that they can
Hmm.
rely upon to make decisions, that's what is behind the data warehouse, and that's why data warehouse has lived to this day.
Yeah, and it's popular again. So what are some of the things that enterprises and companies out there? So what is a different what is an approach that they can sort of do that's not the hiring the consultants of the past? So what kinds of things do you see have you seen, Bill, that seem to be working for this new
Well,
generation?
God bless the people. Enough people took the time to understand what we were talking about and the transformation that has to occur to data. Thank goodness enough people took the time to understand how to build a data warehouse properly, that there are a lot of real success stories out there. And
Hmm.
and if it hadn't been for those people, I don't know what would have happened. But no thanks to the, I'm not going to mention the name of the companies, but no thanks to the large consulting companies that raped and pillaged their customers and took their customers' money without knowing what was doing. But there were enough people that took the time to understand the fundamentals behind data warehouse that it thrives today.
Yeah, I've been involved in seen a lot of projects that have failed, and it's always sort of boils down to trying to boil the ocean, really, trying to do everything at once and have it be the end all. And it just seems like, without getting a win, you're like, spending 2 years on working on something, you have no feedback, and then at the end of 2 years, people are tired and they've done other things, and those other things are often worse than what they could have done if we just, they would have been more agile to begin with. So,
And, and
yeah,
Dave, we never said boil the ocean. Never.
yeah,
We
I
never.
know.
We said do it incrementally. Do it an
Right.
iteration at a time.
Hmm.
And the people that were successful, that's what they did, and it worked well for them. But these people, I'm sorry, don't get me started on the failures.
Yeah, I'm with you. So we're looking forward. So don't boil the ocean is the message to the audience here. When so Bill, you're not even close to being done yet in this industry. I mean, you're still a prolific writer, and you just published a new book called "Building the Data Lakehouse." So, building the data lakehouse. You guys should look it up for listeners of the pod here. Um, so. Um, so tell me, what made you write this new book and talk to us about what it means, what the lake house means and should mean to the world and the audience.
Well, let me tell you my perspective. My perspective is data architecture is like an ever evolving river. It's like the
Mhm.
Mississippi River. The Mississippi River from one day to the next is never the same. It's
Mhm.
always changing. It's something's happening. on the Mississippi. And the same goes to data architecture. What's happened is, okay, this is kind of involved subject, but I'll try to describe it. What's happened is data warehousing really applies to structured transaction-based data. That's really the heart of data warehousing. But there's other data in the corporation that's viable and important data as well. And so our friends at mostly Databricks, but our friends in the world have said, gee, there's other data that's out there. Let's start to be able to use it analytically. And so the evolution of data architecture now includes the data lakehouse, which includes a whole different type of data. And so I look at the data lakehouse as merely the next step in the evolution of data architecture.
Yeah, and so you and I have talked a lot about this, that it's being able to incorporate semi-structured and unstructured data in with what typically data warehouses have been very structured, very rows and columns.
Yep.
And it actually introduces a new challenge, because if you have a semi-structured, unstructured data, you do have to apply some structure. We always talk about a semantic layer. You can't have a semantic layer if you don't have some structure to the data.
Yep.
So Bill, you've also been talking a lot about how to take that semi-structured data or unstructured data and make it structured. I think you call it textual ETL. So talk to us a little bit about what that means.
Surely. If you look at the data in the corporation, there's really three kinds of data in the corporation. There's structured data, textual data, and machine-generated data. And there's a lot of really valuable information that's tied up in text that have been overlooked for a variety of reasons, have been overlooked by the industry. And what we have is technology that allows you to read text and turn text into a standard database. Once you've done that, you can then start to do amazing analytical processing against it. So that's what text is all about. So
yeah, and I've noticed that it's particularly useful, when looking at medical records. Medical records, meaning doctors' notes, are absolutely unstructured, but there's nuggets of gold in there that are incredibly important. And I think your technology with textual ETL is able to turn that into something that's useful for analytics and machine learning.
And I'm happy to report that we're doing some really major league projects right now exactly on that. We have every intention of changing the way medical research is done.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing how far we've come. Well, on a related but a little bit different topic. I mean, we have a war going on between, the traditional, or not traditional, but the new cloud data warehouse versus a data lake. Bill, it would really help for someone who knows both, and is a pioneer really in both. What should people take away with this whole? Is this a phony argument? Is this really a real architectural choice, a data warehouse versus a data lake house? What's your take on this whole kind of a little bit of a war of vendors going on right now?
And it's a war that's going to break into a bigger war.
Hmm.
And I don't mean to insult or offend anybody, but I'm going to tell you right now, putting data, if you have a mess and you put your mess on the cloud, what do you have? You have a mess on the cloud. And there are a lot of people that think, oh, we put it on the cloud and that makes it okay. No, it doesn't make it okay. All you have is transferred the mess elsewhere. So I'm not a big fan of just putting something on the cloud for the sake of putting it on the cloud. If you're going to put it on the cloud, you need to clean the data up. And so I'm very reluctant to get behind people that put things on the cloud for the sake of putting it on the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other people that are out there that are building the data lakehouse, they recognize that there is, they want to clean up that mess, and so if I had to choose a horse in a race, I'd be very much betting on the people that are facing the problems of cleaning up the mess before, because you can put stuff on the cloud, Dave, and it doesn't matter if you put it on the cloud. If it's a mess when it goes on the cloud, it's going to be a mess on the cloud. And I hate to say it, but I think uh, our industry has seen so many silver bullets
Mm-hmm.
well, you just do this, and
Mm-hmm.
those silver bullets never work out. I mean, I remember just go big data, man. Just put it in big data, and
Mm-hmm.
that makes it right. I remember, gosh, I remember way back when. This takes me back, but when people said, "Well, gee, now we have COBOL, even secretaries are going to be writing COBOL." No, no, we laugh at it now, but those, and then, not to pick on IBM and DB2, but I remember it says, "Gee, guys, if you just put it in DB2, all your problems go away." Oh, it's laughable now that we actually took those people seriously.
Yeah, look, it's like it's always, I think we always overestimate the capacity of regular folks, business folks who just have their job to do, and the amount of time that they want to learn technology to be able to make data useful to them.
Yep,
And I think we've done a really poor job over the years, and that's my passion for why I started AtScale. Is like, look, data needs to be usable by everyone, not just somebody who is a data engineer who understands, or like you, understands data structures. It's like, if we do that, we really raise the bar to the point where only a few people can actually use data to make decisions,
yep,
and we don't want that. So we want to make it approachable for everyone, and hopefully, people are doing analysis and they don't even realize they're doing it. It's just it's part of their job, as opposed to doing what we traditionally call data analysis.
yep,
So that's I think would be a good goal for people in our industry. Everyone is a data analyst. Get
yep.
rid of the title data analyst. Everyone is a data analyst.
And
um,
Dave, I think you are absolutely correct. I mean, I support what you said 100%.
I love it. So we're working towards that end. So Bill. So just for some young folks out there. So you started out, on the PGA tour, and you ended up being the father of the data warehouse. What advice would you give some folks starting out, for how they can really make an impact in data and analytics? Or what kind of advice would you give people, young people, to get started in an industry like ours?
Well, I actually teach a little class in college, and I love working with young men and young women. I really do. And here's what I tell them. I I I, I don't want to demean doing the nuts and bolts of technology, being an IT person, but the as far as I'm concerned, the exciting place in the corporation is where the decisions are being made, and
Hmm.
doing analytics, not doing database design. We've got to have people that do those things, and they've got to be done right. But at the end of the day, doing analytics is where the important corporate decisions are being made, and trying to do. I mean, I'm a big fan of analytics, and so if I had a young man or young woman sitting here talking to them, I'd say, get to where you're doing analysis for information about products, about new customers, about new revenue. Those are all of the good places to be.
That's terrific advice. That's great. So, Bill, one last question, which is really about predicting the future. So, I'll put you on the spot.
Okay.
What do you think is next for data and analytics? What should we be on the lookout for?
Well, now I have to admit that I have a prejudiced opinion, but
That's
you asked
sure.
me the questions. I'll give you my prejudice. The world of text in the corporation is untapped. It's like California in 1848.
Hmm.
There is this land sitting there. It's interesting. I've heard stories. I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard stories that in 1848 you could literally walk into the streams of California and start to pick up gold. Now
Hmm.
it may not have been that easy, but there was the gold there. That's where the gold was, and it was there, and you could find it. And to me, when you take a look at text, there's medical records, there's corporate contracts, there's data on the internet, there is hearing the voice of the customer, there's email, there's all of this land out there, this opportunity out there that's never been touched. And believe me, there is great opportunity there. So that's where I think the future is going to be, and that's my humble opinion.
Well, that's exciting because you're right. If you probably look at the amount of data that we collect, it's mostly text. It's mostly unstructured, and that's what really is driving all the data we're collecting, and it's just sitting there, and sitting there on servers on disk doing
Yep,
nothing.
yep.
So turning that into information, turning that data into information, I love that. That's a great area to explore. So listeners, you heard it from Bill, the man himself. Let's go and let's tackle that problem. And Bill, I want to thank you so much for spending time with me and talking about everything you've done for the industry and what you're doing right now and in the future. So thanks so much for joining us, Bill.
Thank you, Dave. My pleasure.
Have a great one. Have a great day. Thanks.
Same to you. Bye bye.